Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, August 7th, 2025. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning Five and Change. This podcast covers your national champions. Great show for you today. Got the Dean, Bill Kurelic, and the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter, here for you, as always, on a Thursday. Interesting time in the year for recruiting, kind of a limbo deal here. We're going to get some questions asked of these guys, but if you've seen the title of the show, you know you're in store for something fun. What if our Dean and Poobah actually ran Ohio State? Would they be on this podcast? Probably not, but you never know. One thing you do know about this podcast, great deals for the Nutters. Viore has joined up in terms of advertisers. You may know it as Vuori, as I did, the clothing company, and I was wrong. It's Viore. Viore. Really, and like I said, athletic chic. After the pandemic, we're allowed to wear sweatpants now. It's pretty cool, and they've taken it to another level. Look great beyond the gym. Running errands, heading to the office, or meeting up with friends. You throw on the performance joggers, part of their Dream Knit collection, your fitness lounge focus. Great for stretching and lounging, like I said, stylish. You got Dream Knit fabric. Comfort, you got the softest joggers on the planet. Versatility, it's an effortless wardrobe essential, and you're still stylish. Don't forget it, and all inspired by an active lifestyle. And Viore is offering 20% off your first purchase. Go to viore.com/Bucknuts for 20% off your first purchase and free returns for U.S. orders over $75. All right. Our guys are here. No pressure, guys. If you see the title of the podcast today, it is What If Our Dean and Poobah Actually Ran Ohio State? Now, that is inspired by some questions. I asked for some questions on the front row for the BM5. Not as many as I'd like usually. People, you need to be better at that. So if you've got any questions for the guys today, please pop them in the live chat here, and we'll get to it. But Fox R 2001 asked a great question, and he is running the show today. Here we go. Ask them both and yourself. That's us three. If you guys were in charge of paying the players, would they do what Day is doing, which is pay the current roster the most and pay some to everyone else? Excuse me. Or would you try something else? For instance, setting aside a sizable amount to pay the 5-star high school recruits. Fox R 2001 likes the approach Day uses, but he'd like to hear from all three of us if we would do something different, substantially different, a small tweak, etc. Let's go in veteran order here. Dean, that's you. If you were running the show, after all these years, they came to you and said, you know what, here are the keys. Spend as you will on what you will. How would the Dean approach talent acquisition?
Well, my first executive order would be to make Mark Porter, the Grand Poobah, the head coach. That way, I'll still be making a very good salary, very good living, and he can have all the headaches. And you know what? In this day and age of college football, I would get to do more coaching than him, I think, because so many college coaches are now the CEOs rather than the coach on the field as quite as much. So, Mark, you are the Grand Poobah of Ohio State, and I'll be the assistant. How's that for a start? But I would be shirking my duties if I didn't answer Dan's question. One thing that I would definitely do, and Ohio State really has done this, is money-wise, I would first and foremost use my money, because it is, as I've said on this show many times, it's not a bottomless pit at Ohio State or just about any other school. I would use my money on the current roster first. To me, that is a proven method of doing things. A couple of years ago, Michigan paid their guys to stay an extra year, and then they got a national championship. They were playing with a whole lot of fourth, fifth, and sometimes sixth-year players. They won a national championship. Ohio State, same thing last year. They had one or two couple guys leave that you knew there was no way they were possibly going to be able to pay and keep them. But for the most part, they kept everybody they wanted to keep for an extra year. What did Ohio State get? A national championship. So I think that's a proven method. I just think fourth and fifth year guys are physically more ready to play and able to play at a high level than a first and second year guy in general. Now there are exceptions, Jeremiah Smith, #, but in general, I think that's one of the first things I would make sure is done. Now, Ohio State wise too, I would really emphasize, and Ryan Day's tried to do that, but because of the NIL, it hasn't worked out quite as well. Keep the Ohio guys at home. That's been tougher. That's been really a lot tougher last year or two, because schools like Oregon have put on packages that just a player couldn't turn down. So I think those would be the two biggest things I would do. And I'm at the 6-minute mark almost. So I'm now turning it over to the head coach, Mark Porter.
It's funny. You know exactly what I know about coaching. The head coaching job is overrated. Being a coordinator is where the fun is. And if I was in my dream job, I'd love to be an offensive coordinator, sitting above the box, looking down and calling plays in, and all week scheming. Like I would like to be Chip Kelly is who I'd like to be.
I was just going to say that.
Come in and hit a homer for the team and be the coolest guy in the world, then walk out and go do the NFL thing. That would be kind of cool.
And then maybe, Mark, you don't have to do as much recruiting then too.
And Bill, you nail it. And if you really said, Mark, what would be your favorite job? Offensive coordinator in the NFL, because of what you said. Let's eliminate the recruiting component of this. So at 6:00 at night, I can walk out of my office and go to my kids' T-ball games or whatever I want to do. And really, the NFL coaches I talk to, that's their biggest difference. They know in the off season what time they're leaving the office. There's no more studying at 11:00 at night. So, okay, if selfishly those would be my dream jobs, but boy, as soon as you say this question, Dan, you're the head coach at Ohio State, you're like, oh, we could take this in a funny direction. What would you do? I'd have more practices in the shoe. I'd have more fan appreciation days where they got to come on the field and watch practices, and we'd hype that thing up and have some really fun practices. To bring in a DJ, we'd have a DJ at practice, and we'd have some, that could be comical. But the first thing I would honestly do is I would use my pool if I'm Ryan Day, because he knows a lot of people, and I would bring in some capologists from the NFL and some GMs and ask them about their cap, where they allocated their money, what positions that they put bigger percentages towards and why, what the biggest mistakes are. Like I'd say, hey guys, give me the 20 biggest mistakes you guys have seen in the NFL. Whose cap is totally effed over because of what did they do, and tell me why they did it and how they did it. Tell me, stories about teams that are in salary cap hell, as they say, and what led to that salary cap hell. And I would really become it, because that's the future of football. I would just become an expert with that, and I would have that pie chart of, okay, every year we're going to have to spend on a quarterback. It's unavoidable. There is no quarterback coming out of high school that is not going to want paid at our level, our caliber. So you kind of got to have these black and white things where, Bill said it, you pay your roster first, but there's no way you're going to get away with not paying incoming guys, which is where I think the unfairness and the real rub is right now, because you can't have freshmen who have never touched a football in a college game making more than kids already on your roster, unless you want to let those kids know that they're not really that highly thought of because we're paying freshmen more than you. So there's always going to be that awkward area of how do we handle this? But I think for the most part, in this new day and age, you are an NFL model. You have a scouting department almost. You have a GM. You have a capologist, the head coach. I mean, the staff on these schools, when you go to the school directory now and you look at you see the 9 coaches, but then you see a whole nother 20-person staff that makes that team run. I'd hire my friends. I'd have them in the building. I mean, there'd be an investigation, I'm sure, within a year or two. There's all kinds of stuff that would be going on if I was the head coach there. How long would I make it? Over under 2.5 years, Vegas says. You get a free one the first year. That second one, oh boy. That job is so daunting when you think about it from the cerebral perspective of just putting together a staff and having the trust and relationships to know and interview people and get quality humans and not only quality, but the tip of the spear type coaches every time the hiring process comes through. Dan, this question is like a 4-hour interview question where it's almost like I want to open up page 1. On day 1 of camp, here are the things we'd focus on. I would change this, but the original thing, I think the question says, would you just do what Day is doing? Pretty much, right? I mean, he just aced the test. You'd probably keep him on board. Hey, I know I'm the new head coach, but I'll pay you whatever you want just to stay around and tell me what you were doing. I think they really have a template right now that they're running in. So, Bill, I did pretty good. I got us to 11 minutes, so we both gave a good 5-minute, spiel on that. But it could be such a fun thing to do. And the power, I was thinking of the power you hold as that guy, the way you could walk around that town and that campus and the things you could pull off if you had the time of the day. I mean, because the football just drains you, but really, really cool question.
So I gave this some thought too. They wanted my opinion on this, and I think I would echo a lot of what you guys said. I'm not going to be able to reinvent the wheel there. What jumped out to me about what both of you said was, Bill, you were describing your ideal job, and then Mark hit it. That's what Chip Kelly got to do. He lasted about a year here, but you also mentioned how tough the job is. We used to run side-by-sides of the president of the United States and the head coach of Ohio State when they got the job and when they left, and their hair did not look the same. You want to get immediately grayed? Now, the current president and Ryan Day somehow have avoided that, so maybe we need an investigation into both their hairs, but they look great. Here's why I really do think Ohio State is approaching it best. Now, and this will probably get addressed later, the overarching idea, and Bill and I actually discussed this on the phone yesterday when we were just shooting the bull, is no one really knows what the rules are. I've asked 1 million people, Bill's asked people, Mark's asked people. No one really knows what the rules are. People are operating under what they think the rules may be. Some people are rolling the dice. See hashtag USC, and things could change. Maybe they won't change. So that will be something we'll discuss, I think, throughout. Here's why I agree with, excuse me?
Maybe a cleaner way to say that is no one knows where the line is not to cross. There's rules, but there's no like hard, fast, don't pass this line or you're going to NCAA jail. And everybody keeps pushing that line. Sorry to interrupt there.
No, that's right. That's a good point.
Like, there's a line. Yeah.
But no one knows where the enforceable line is or is going to be. Or, hey, here's another thing that's great. It may change. It could be somewhere today at a different place tomorrow. So that's a no-go. But here's why I like Ohio State's approach and just some clarifications. For example, I think it's reasonable to assume that Jeremiah Smith is the highest paid compensation player at Ohio State. He was not upon entrance to Ohio State, though. So you get treated at Ohio State really how you perform on the field when you get to Ohio State. So I like that approach. There's too much gambling in terms of paying players. Like I was telling Bill yesterday, someone responded to one of our shows on here. I think it was on a YouTube comment, said, oh, look, they've got a quarterback, some Ohio linemen, some elite receivers, and a couple defensive players. Exactly. Because those are the guys they've invested in over time that have turned out to be great players. And that's the most consistent. The Glenville pipeline is not a pipeline because it's produced bad players. It's the pipeline because it consistently provides really good players. Now you add in the salary cap vibes. I think they've figured out you need to develop a number of offensive linemen younger than you can get them in the portal. And here's another group of people I want to mention to you. Ethan Onianwa, Bo Atkinson, Max Clare, Davison Igbinosun, Will Howard, Quinshawn Judkins, and C.J. Donaldson. Now, I think everybody is in support of them being on the team and getting NIL compensation. One thing they all have in common, none were offered by Ohio State out of high school. None. So would you rather pay for the guys from Glenville and the quarterbacks and the receivers you're getting, and then come in with Max Clare didn't get offered out of Ohio. Ethan Oniano was not even on the radar, but now they're clearly willing, worthy of getting paid by Ohio State. So this has just allowed them to handpick their replacements. I would also wonder over long term, guys who have held out for more money and make money the complete priority, how do they turn out? They're going to have a trend for that soon. I use the term OKG, our kind of guys. There are guys who committed to Ohio State, never wavered, and are just as good as everybody else. Jeremiah Smith, you can go, Caleb Downs came here. That's not the issue. So I got no problem with it. And another thing, they just won the national championship. Why would they change? That's another thing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, they may be proven wrong because this is an emerging kind of deal here. But as of the way they're doing it now, I don't think I have any real complaints. And as far as this current recruiting class looking like everyone complaining about it because it's currently ranked 9th, keep in mind the quarterback in the class is not the usual level of quarterback recruiting wise they go after, and they could still add Braylon Womack. If you had those both in there, you'd be 4th or 5th, which is right on par basically. So I actually agree with the way they're doing it. Mark, I will ask you that question in a sec, but let's get to our next ad, and that is Gooder Sunglasses. I actually had a boys' weekend with my guys, and we all accidentally left something there. And the host of the weekend just sent a picture wearing someone else's glasses, someone else's shirt, and holding a whiskey bottle that was left behind. Those glasses were not Gooders, and the guy who lost them was not psyched. If they're Gooders, you're set. You can buy 3 pairs for $25 each and still pay a third of what my guy did and doesn't have them anymore. Stylish Sunny starting only $25 a pair, 1-year warranty, 30-day free returns, lightweight and comfortable, 100% polarized, no slip, no bounce, lots of colors to choose from. And Gooder is giving Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners free shipping. You can go to gooder.com/Bucknuts and use code Bucknuts for free shipping. 30-day money-back guarantee. Again, gooder.com, gooder.com/Bucknuts. All right, let's get to the next question. Mark, we will get to that recruiting question there in a sec, but I want to keep it up with those who ask the questions of us. So let's get to that. The next question, this is by SEM20696. Bill, we will start with you, and this is a 3-1 fastball. Overall impact of our big home game starting at noon and out-of-state recruits not being able to attend versus our competitors, Oregon, USC, Texas SEC, them having more late kickoff times. And just to add to the fun, Pat Murphy has a story up now on our site about how Ross Bjork believes the game later in the season we were looking forward to for recruiting purposes, hosting Penn State, will likely be a big noon game. The floor is yours, Dean.
Well, interesting. In my in the dean's office chat yesterday, I also, by someone else, had pretty much that same question, and they actually ask it in such a way that the impact of noon games on Ohio recruits, on Midwest recruits, and then far West recruits. And I think that's a pretty good way to put it, because the big noon games don't usually have a big impact on Ohio recruits. There's pretty much no Ohio recruit that can't get to Ohio State in a 3-hour or less drive for the most part. But the one way it does have an impact on Ohio kids is that sometimes coaches like to have Saturday morning practices. And if they do, that makes it tougher on Ohio kids. So it does impact the Ohio kids some, just not to the extent of, say, somebody from the far west. Or I will put in there from Texas, for instance. Our guy, Jalen Brewster, he and his dad absolutely want to come to the Ohio State-Texas game. They have not been able to find a flight so far that leaves in time that they wouldn't get to Ohio State without flying from 11 o'clock at night overnight, all that, doing all that. They haven't been able to find a flight yet. They have been continuing to work on that. So not only does it impact guys from the far west, but it impacts, in some cases, kids from Texas. So moving to the Midwest, it does impact those kids more than Ohio kids. If you're in Illinois 6 hours away, it does make it tougher. So really, the farther away in general, the harder it gets. And it really does impact kids that live in California, Texas, dare I say, Idaho, because Ohio State has had a little success there as well. It really does impact those guys and makes it tougher. Pat Murphy breaking all our hearts, telling us that the story that Penn State game is probably going to be a big noon game. Urban Meyer is, if he were the head coach, I mean, goodness gracious, he always talked about having those late afternoon night games is a boon to recruiting. And Ryan Day has certainly had to put up with that, and it makes it tougher.
Certainly ironic that Urban is now on TV at noon for Fox.
Yeah,
I enjoy that, but I think he probably enjoyed it if it was at 4 p.m., given his true allegiances. Marcus, your vibes?
This is like master of the obvious stuff, but the West Coast is used to watching games 3 hours behind us. Monday Night Football here, we're used to sitting down at 8, 9 o'clock, and cozying into bed after the game's over. And a lot of times the party's started or the bar's kicking, and it's a great atmosphere. So these big games, when they're at night, aren't those like the greatest atmosphere for East Coast people sitting there at that time frame? Noon kickoff means 9 a.m. on TV out west. Who's geeked up, ready to watch a college football game? I mean, right now it's 8:30. In a half hour, are you ready at 9 a.m.? I mean, do you have your bowl of chips and your beer sitting there? And I'm not ready to eat Cheetos yet. I mean, if I grabbed a handful of Cheetos right now, I'd puke. So it's just a different vibe in the morning. And that's such a great game and such a great atmosphere. You want to share that with the country, even if it's a TV game. You could be sitting out there in the West Coast and be like, wow, look at that Ohio State game. Those fans are rocking. Those kids are going nuts. That noon game, the people in Ohio, yeah, they're geeked up by noon. It's fine for them. The atmosphere, the stadium will be full, but you lose that feel to the entire West Coast. They may wake up at halftime and catch the end of the game or just a few clips. So I think from even that perspective, it's just a dog game or a dog time in general. I can't believe that Fox pulls ratings on the West Coast that early in the morning where they can justify having it that early. But I mean, West Coast people, they must be conditioned to that type of, game day atmosphere. But yeah, I look at that too and say it's just dog water for everything involved there.
It's funny. My son and I, my youngest is also a big time, just will watch anything at any time. And we talked about how he's like, I'm going to move to the West Coast so I get to see more games. If you like any other sports, football's easy. It's once a week. You're starting baseball games at 3:45. There's 6:45 first pitch on the East Coast. So if you're a nerd like me, I think I would actually like it. I will say this. The timing is probably the time of the kickoff maybe less impactful now that their kids are getting paid, because the sales piece of being there and rah is a little different now. You can just come in and say, did you miss the game? Here's an extra $100,000. And I don't know that's actually happened. I don't know that it hasn't. The only silver lining to this is I do believe it's an advantage for Ohio State that for Texas, this game is on the road at 11 a.m. I can't remember if USC or UCLA or Oregon will ever have to come east and do that, but you can look at the NFL over time. Teams that come east for that 1 o'clock kickoff, their record is awful. So that is something to keep an eye on going forward as well. The last question was also for SEM from SEM 20696. It was not a question. It just said, Dan, the doctor of digression, Rubin. And so that's not really a question. Most times when guys take a shot at me, I might do something. But however, I'm going to use this time to congratulate SEM 26 for 20 years as a Bucknuts premium subscriber. I went and checked because I was going to ban him for being mean to me, but I changed my mind because he's paid off 20 years. You probably bought my kid a pair of high tops along the way if you add it up. So I appreciate it. And if you have been a subscriber here for 20 years, you can pretty much say whatever you want to me, and I will just be like, thanks. But let me read our last. And you know why? Not for me, but if they did stress me out, I would just go to Cornbread Hemp. It's my healthy happy hour. Let me throw my banner up there. Mark knows. Healthy happy hour. America's first USDA organic THC edible, 1-to-1 THC to CBD ratio, 10 milligrams of THC per gummy. Don't you know it's just the right dose? Farm Bill compliant, and here's the most important part, legal for adults over 21. So if you're looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread Hemp a try. They've created the first ever USDA organic THC gummy. Like I said, 100% legal. Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners get 30% off your first order. cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts. I forgot to say this. Hold on a sec, Bill. I forgot to say this earlier. Mark, when you said what you would do as Ryan Day, you bring in DJ. I thought you said a DJ. When you said DJ, I thought that meant the top of your order was to give your son a scholarship offer, bring him in and make him the quarterback. And I thought to myself, man, I know what jersey I'm buying first. The old Porter special. I promise you this. If DJ Porter gets an Ohio State jersey, I will wear that on every show going forward and be more proud than I've ever been of anything. All right, Bill, you're going to say something. I cut you off. I apologize.
No, I was just going to say, talking about our longtime 20-year subscriber, which is fantastic. We started this show with the question of Fox R2 from a question from Fox R2001, and I got to give him props too. He is one of the great posters on our front row message board. So kudos to Fox R2001 for starting this off and being a great poster.
And the reason I don't know that is because he's so nice. I didn't look at his profile with the idea of banning him and then see that he has been here forever. And then, you've paid your way. You can say whatever the heck you want. That's how things work. All right. Let's get to some questions that were submitted here that we appreciate.
When Bill and I were partying this weekend, he told me he takes 3 or 4 of those cornbread hemp things. I don't know if he's supposed to be doing that, but every time I turned around, he was like, just popping them in. I thought, I was like, what are those, Tic Tacs? And he's like, no, they're cornbread hemp. So
you guys know who like the biggest, one of the big names in this game is Willie Nelson. And he's got nothing on the dean when it comes to actually he does. The dean would have to take classes from
Keith Richards,
an elder statesman and Willie Nelson. All right. Ryan asked directly to, he knows how to get his question answered. Excuse me, good Lord. Hey, Poobah, what's your take on Riley Newman from Lakota West? He camped at Ohio State in June. Do you think we offer? I'll tell you this, Mark. The Lakotas, I don't know what's going on down there, but over the last 4 or 5 years, I don't know if it's a geographic shift of some sort. There is a ton of talent, not just football talent, Division I basketball talent as well. What is going on in your Lakotas? By the way, original werewolf, Lakota West.
So when we did our college tour in May and I went to Lakota West and I started the camera running, Coach Bolden put all of his Division I guys into one group. And when that group went through the agilities, it was awesome. One of the guys in that group, Riley Newman, younger guy, he's enormous. 6'6", 245, I believe he's listed at. I haven't decided if he's going to be a defensive end, a tight end, an offensive tackle. He's a piece of clay right now that you just offer and you figure it out once he gets to your campus. But this year, the film will tell us more on how they play him and where he ends up. Now, in high school, they had so many big bodies down there. They may have another guy that can play tight end, so they may kick him in just because they don't need a tight end, but they need to get him on the field. Or he'll be the tight end. Someone else will get kicked inside. I'm kind of waiting to see how that plays out. But the question is he an Ohio State caliber type guy? I'd say by size alone, he's a prospect. The film this year would decide if he's an offer, and I'm rooting for him. He was a good-looking kid. That Lakota thing down there, Coach Bolden has got that thing rolling. When he left Coleraine, you're like, wow, that's a heck of a place to leave. I mean, you think he was rolling there. Boy, I think he knew something we didn't over at Lakota West.
And by the way, he does already have some pretty nice offers. Oregon, Indiana, Michigan, Iowa, Kentucky, Maryland. So he's got a nice start there for sure.
All right. Couple more quick questions. And then we'll
Buckeye in the Sky here, too.
I got it. Nope. See, that's what happens when the offensive coordinator will get fined for that. Just so you know. All right, let's just do this one here. Mika, I got to give you something. Hope we circle back on Cam Thomas. Thoughts? Mark, maybe introduce us to Cam Thomas or reintroduce us. Then, Bill, you can hit the recruiting side of it.
Yeah, he's the linebacker, defensive end for Lakota West. He's probably a tweener at that position. You don't know if he's a linebacker that'll actually play in space and drop. But what his main trait is pass rushing. He's a guy that comes off the blocks well, does a nice pass rush repertoire. I mean, he'll be pushing double-digit sacks this year in a hurry. Committed to Illinois. I believe he's still committed there. I think, like we say every year, Ohio State revisits everything senior year. So if Lakota's in the playoffs this year making noise and he's, dropping quarterbacks left and right, there could be a revisit to him. Depending on how our linebacker recruiting goes, and if we need someone, I think the Ohio guy should always get a second look and come first. But that's definitely a name we've talked about a bunch, and if it recirculated, it wouldn't bother me. And I don't think Illinois, him being committed there, would stop him from committing to Ohio State. And just following him online, he likes the recruiting process. He's out there a lot, retweeting a lot of things, and he was pretty present until he committed.
And let me say that Cam Thomas is absolutely one of my favorite guys in the Ohio class of 2026. Good football player, and what a nice, actually great young man. I got to know Cam. I went to a Lakota West game a couple of years ago and got to know him after that. And he is, Mark alluded to it, and I don't want to put out there that Cam is thinking about flipping or anything else. Not at all. But I will say he really likes Ohio State a lot. He really was looking to get that offer and working really hard going to Ohio State camps and things like that. He's about 1.5, 6'2", about 215 to 220. As Mark said, he is a rush guy. He gets on that edge, and I was really, very first time I saw him play in a game, actually, I was really impressed with Cam. He gets after it from the edge. If Ohio State did revisit that and offer him a scholarship, again, I know he likes Ohio State a lot. Again, I'm not saying he would be a flip or anything else, but I think he would at least be enticed because he does like Ohio State.
It's one to watch. The uncharted waters aspect of recruiting now, to me, that we haven't really had a chance to see, that I think it's going to get exaggerated every year. And this year really is that some of these teams that have paid kids are not going to be good. And the response to that across the program and the money and it's not going to be quite as shiny. So let's just see what happens across the board. And I want to give credit to Brian Emerson. He's asked a question for the future The question was, who had the best high school video? And the name Jamal Barry is on there with Terrell Pryor and Ezekiel Elliott. So, Mark, that's going to be an assignment for later on. We'll do that. But Jamal Barry, I haven't heard that name for a while. Note to self, if you're driving in your car, do not have a lot of weed on the back seat. Allegedly, that happened to Jamal Barry. You can go look it up. It doesn't help recruiting.
He definitely didn't have cornbread hemp.
Jamal Barry probably was born a little too early. No offense to Jamal, but the weed has taken on a different view, modern-wise. All right. Now, we are going to let you check out a video here. There's a method to the madness here. There is one, and I bet one. Not bet. There is one. Class of 2028 commitment already, and I can hear. Excuse me? You shaking your head, Mark? Why is that?
I can hear it too. Saying, wow, 2028 commitment. I can, yeah.
Oh, okay. As I say, I can hear the sound of everyone saying, oh, Florida guy from 2028, he has a better chance of going to X school or Y school. Maybe. But he is verbally committed. And as Mark will tell you, we're about to get going on a bunch of other dudes because guess what? As they take the field here going forward, there's going to be new film on all the dudes. So we are hesitant to use film of guys from 9 months ago. Mark will tell you about the guy we were going to do today and why we're not going to do him. And then he will get to video on Elijah Hall, the athlete running back out of Tampa, Blake, who verbally committed to Ohio State on June the 13th. Mark, the floor is yours.
Okay, so yeah, Dan's like, let's get Ace Alston going, and I'm like, yes, Ohio guy. But we are on the eve. This is football eve. If you want to give it a, we should coin a phrase for what today is, Dan, because the pads are on. The kids had to acclimate. Now they're allowed to scrimmage other teams. It's happening today. At 1 o'clock today, if I was to leave my house right now, I could possibly get to Cincinnati Anderson in time. But there's a scrimmage with Taft, Fairfield, Northmont. Wow, there's some heat in that group right there. That'd be a great start. But why do last year's film when literally in 3 hours we're going to have this year's film? So
and think about this, Mark. If you're on the West Coast, you could see even more teams because you could go to this at 10 a.m. and then go to games all day. So you could put another 10,000 miles on your car. But I digress.
It's really so. We are on the precipice of a new year, and we don't have to wait much longer to see the pads cracking in high school. So the Buckeye Sky we're going to present to you is, the 2028 running back, Elijah Hall from Florida. You're right. When you said I can hear people saying, wow, 2028, we got to hold on to this kid for 3 years. Yeah, you do. And that's going to be it's going to be tough for him. What do you think? Ohio State's just going to shut down running back recruiting for the next 3 years because we have the anointed second coming of Christ, coming in. Now, this kid's good. It's a freshman film. It's not going to Savion Hyder blow you away. It's not going to make you say, oh my gosh. But as a freshman, if you look hard, you can see what Ohio State saw. This kid runs hard for a young kid. He bounces off a lot of players. He takes on a lot of contact. You see him finishing runs there. For a young kid to be that strong early, those are the traits that are kind of showing off. I kind of compared him to a little bit of a Marshawn Lynch. Is that a crazy comparison for any freshman? Yes, I'll cop to that. But when you're looking at the style he has, he does have some strength. He is going to be a grinder between the tackles. He's very Judkins-esque, so we'll let people take their look at a young guy. And the question is, can we hold him for 3 years? The other question we should maybe ask is it wise to take commitments so young? Now, if this is Jeremiah Smith, you take this thing and you just put bubble wrap on him and you can't wait till he gets to campus. But we can't treat every young kid like they're Jeremiah Smith and there's some transformational prospect that when they hit campus, our whole lives are going to be different. But recruiting this early always makes me nervous. I'm just going over the bumps in the road. But great looking prospect early on. And you see the comments, serious potential. We'll see how this plays out. This is really that's a long commitment to hold. And Could they have possibly given him NIL already and said, hey, here's what your NIL is going to be in 2 or 3 years? So this is really, well, to be determined. Follow this space, I would say, is the best way to describe this.
I will say this, Bill, and you can comment on this. If some guys grow early, okay? Everyone knows the freshman with the mustache who was your running back. He took his helmet off, and you're like, I'm tackling this guy. He looks like my dad. Some of those guys don't grow after that. I'm not saying that's Elijah Hall, but 5'11", 195 as a freshman in high school and running like that, you have got some real potential, man. Bill, your thoughts on the idea of Elijah Hall committing, and would you put your grandchildren's future settlement, future inheritance on him actually being a Buckeye?
Well, when he was at camp, he was very impressive. Again, I'm not saying he is Savion Hyder right now, but who knows? He's got a few years left before he gets to his senior year in high school. So we'll see what happens. But he's really good. And I think a lot of people were a little more than a little surprised when he just went ahead and committed so quickly. He really liked it at Ohio State when he was up here. So I guess it wasn't a total surprise because he did like it a lot. Now, this is almost like the old gun to my head thing I get quite often. Would you put all of your lifetime savings on him staying as a Buckeye? I don't know that I would. Because I'm not a gambler.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of a gamble. So I'm going to say I don't think I would because I'm not the gambling type.
Okay. I wouldn't do that either. That doesn't sound. The answer to this is no. Do kids sign a letter of intent now or a financial agreement with the schools? That falls back into the area Bill and I were talking about earlier. Well, no one really knows the answer to that. Some do, some don't. I will say Ohio State is not in the business of giving you money before you get to campus. And I think that might also have something to do with it. All right, Mark. Last question. Myron Elzey was 6 foot in elementary school. Mark should know that name, running over everyone until high school, and then he got bigger too, LOL. Do you know that name, Mark?
I don't. And I was a middle school coach for a while, and I coached against a lot of kids like that. And I could go. Brandon Beecham was one that he later on went to Penn State. But
in
8th grade. Okay, so this is a great story. Mike Zorich.
Time out. Yeah. Brandon Beecham was on the. Hold on a sec. He was on the Mooney team that lost to Coldwater, was he not?
There you go. Yeah, he was their tailback, and he ended up going to Penn State. And he was a linebacker. But in 8th grade, he was so dominant. Mike Zorich was my assistant coach. He had a son on the team. He was a Michigan coach. So. Quality coach there. But when we got the film of this kid running in 8th grade, he looked at me and he said, do not show this to our team because nobody will stand in front of this kid. They'll shut down before they ever get there. He goes, we can't let them see this. The first time they see him has to be in pregame because if they start worrying now, and there are kids like that, and middle school's always been like that. And it's like you're always chasing that type of player. Very few of them do transfer into Division I guys. A lot of them just end up being good high school players because, like you're saying, they stay 5'8", 160 forever, and that doesn't really translate to anything but like Mount Union and John Carroll and places like that. We should do another whole podcast where you give me time to prepare about some of these middle school legends and
oh my God,
how they actually turned out.
I'll just end it on this. One of the best pictures we have of my youngest, who was particularly little when he was playing football, he and 3 of his friends hanging on the biggest football player we'd ever played against going down the field, and it was a young lady. So that's the end of that story. So appreciate everybody stopping by. A little early today because we got stuff to do. We'll be back on Tuesday with these guys. Have a good one. Nutters of Buck.